It's that time again. The annual conference of the American Society of Ag Consultants, otherwise known as ASAC, is going to be held in Fort Myers, Florida, this November 4th and 5th. Kurt Covington is one of 9 professionals who will address the conference. The other speakers who will cover a wide range of topics represent Florida Farm Bureau, Florida Citrus Commission, University of Tennessee Institute of Agriculture, National Ag Law Center, Risk Mitigators and Advisors, Tyler Associates, as well as the lead economist for dairy at CoBank, and myself, Chrissy Wozniak from North American Ag. The day and a half of presentations will be followed by ag tours on Tuesday afternoon at Echo Farms, one of my favorite places here in Fort Myers. Attendees will experience farming at its most creative, with unique demonstrations, plants, and techniques being used to help farmers and urban gardeners in developing countries. A second tour at Echo will showcase simple technologies that can improve food, water, and shelter for millions of people. A third tour of a hydroponic grower is also being planned. For more information and to register, visit www.agconsultants.org. That's www.agconsultants.org. See you there. The American Royal is the nation's highest caliber livestock show, providing a premier experience for exhibitors. Rooted in their legacy, which began in 1899, they're committed to providing a platform for competition, scholarships, and education. A Kansas City tradition, the American Royal is focused on creating an environment where all feel welcome, where agriculture is elevated and champions are crowned. The American Royal is currently celebrating its 123rd year and looking forward to hosting exhibitors from October 6th to 23rd right in Kansas City, Missouri. If you're interested in showing, be sure to check out their website for more information regarding entry information and deadlines. www.americanroyal.com. That's www.americanroyal.com, or follow the link in the show notes. Entries are due September 10th. Welcome to North American Ag Spotlight. I'm Chrissy Wozniak. My guest today is Vice President of Public Policy for the National Corn Growers Association, where she works in concert with the board and leadership to develop and implement the organization's policy priorities and manages all outreach to Congress, the administration, and government agencies. She's been invited to speak at this year's Women in Agribusiness Summit, and that's in Dallas, September 26th to 28th. The mission of Women in Agribusiness is to highlight the expertise of women in food and agribusiness and help them build a network of female leaders. From Washington, D.C., I would like to welcome Brooke Appleton. Welcome, Brooke, and thank you so much for being here.
Thanks so much for having me.
So first of all, tell me a little bit about your background. You do come from a farming background, correct?
I do, yes. I grew up on a row crop and a beef cattle farm in the northwest corner of Missouri. And I found my way to Washington right out of college almost 20 years ago, not quite, 16, 17 years ago. So I'm currently, as you mentioned, serving as Vice President of Public Policy for the National Corn Growers Association. I've worked in advocacy and policy issues for my entire time here in Washington. Served in different roles on Capitol Hill, at USDA, and now, of course, in the commodity world with the National Corn Growers Association.
Wow. Well, thank you for your service to the industry. That's amazing.
Thank you. Yeah, no, it's been a lot of fun. Washington is a really fun place to be. I know we get a lot of slack for being dysfunctional, but it really is where all the action is. So if you're interested in policy, it's kind of the place to be.
Right. Yeah. And so give me some background on the Corn Growers Association and what their role is in Washington, really.
Sure, absolutely. So the National Corn Growers Association was actually founded in 1957. We represent nearly 40,000 dues-paying corn farmers nationwide and the interests of more than 300,000 growers who contribute through their state corn checkoff programs. NCGA and its 50 affiliated state associations and checkoff organizations work together to kind of create and increase opportunities for their membership and their industry, our industry, corn industry. I work with NCGA's board and leadership to kind of develop and implement the organization's policy priorities and manage all the outreach to Congress, the administration, and government agencies here in Washington. We have roughly 10 staff members here in DC working on policy and advocating on NCGA's behalf here in the Washington office.
Great. That's a lot. And the Women in Agribusiness Summit, as I mentioned before, is coming up next month, September 26th to 28th in Dallas. And you've been asked to speak at the summit. And your topic is the 2023 Farm Bill. Can you give me some background on the Farm Bill itself, and its history over the last 35 or so years?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, I just want to say I'm excited to be attending the Women in Agribusiness Summit. This will be my first time with the event, so I'm really looking forward to it and kind of seeing it in its full capacity and all that it has to offer. From a Farm Bill perspective, so overall, the Farm Bill is a multi-year law that governs an array of agriculture and food programs, ranging from domestic commodity programs to ag research and even trade promotion programs. The Farm Bill is typically reauthorized and passed about every 5 years. And since the 1930s, we've had 18 farm bills that have been enacted, with the most recent in 2018 and 2014. So a lot of times in DC ag policy circles, people often measure their careers by how many farm bills we've worked on. And this will be my X farm bill. So for me, this will be my fourth farm bill.
Wow.
That I've worked on in various capacities since I've been here in Washington. But we definitely have people around, including my boss. I believe this will be the seventh that he's been involved in. So
wow.
You get some DC veterans who've been around a while, who've kind of seen it all, if you will.
I guess.
But just real quickly, importantly, I think for corn growers, the Farm Bill governs USDA, including kind of the farm safety net agencies and their programs, which are the kind of the forward-facing agencies that our farmers deal with the most out of USDA. So the Farm Service Agency, the Risk Management Agency, and the Natural Resources Conservation Service are kind of three places where the Farm Bill kind of governs all the programs that are run from those three agencies within USDA that are really important to our growers.
Yeah. And what are some key points that you think will be covered in the 2023 Farm Bill? And also considering it could change drastically between now and when it's passed.
Yes, absolutely. So while the House and the Senate Agriculture Committees are still in listening mode right now, they're kind of doing field hearings and oversight hearings. There definitely have been items that have kind of already risen to the surface. The farm economy is very different than in 2018 when the last bill was passed, and that always kind of affects how we view policy here in Washington. While commodity prices are higher, so are input costs, and the market is more volatile. So that's something we'll definitely be dealing with. We have also gone through a period of ad hoc programs in response to trade wars and widespread natural disasters, and of course, COVID, which has affected everyone. Congress will have to kind of listen to stakeholders, which is what they're kind of doing now, and they will continue to do. And talking about what has gone well with the current Farm Bill and ways that USDA programs and policies can be improved, kind of building off of the experiences over the last 5 years in the current legislation. So I think the focus may very well be on the high input costs, inflation, and kind of the needed tools to respond to the conflict in the Ukraine and Russia. So I think one positive is that commodity groups kind of continue to remain on the same page on our top priority, and that is that crop insurance is really a critical risk management tool to use in response to all disasters, and it will kind of continue to be our top priority as we work our way through what will hopefully be the 2023 Farm Bill.
Right, that's good. And we very well may see the House flip in November. What kind of impact will the elections have over the evolution of the bill over the next few months?
Yeah, that can really change the landscape pretty quickly.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, historically, the Senate and the House Agriculture Committees have largely put partisanship aside and worked together on behalf of farmers, which is really great to see. Something that we did recently during our kind of annual fly-in here in Washington is I hosted a discussion, a Farm Bill panel, if you will, and we had former Senator Heidi Heitkamp was on that panel. She is the former senator from North Dakota, and she served on the Senate Ag Committee. And she said the key to legislative success on the Farm Bill is for growers to extend their influence by working with people and groups from outside of ag production. And she's absolutely right.
That makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, she used food security as an example, noting that increasingly members on the House and Senate Agriculture Committees are prioritizing domestic and international food security. So she talked about, to be successful, and she said specifically for corn growers are going to have to build relationships with members of Congress who focus on, the nutrition side and the supplemental nutrition assistance program that is a big part of the Farm Bill. And I think she made some really insightful points there. And she made one comment that kind of stuck with me is that, not every member of Congress represents a farmer, but every senator does because they represent the entire state, right? So I think finding that common ground, particularly on the Senate side with making that rural connection, I think will be important. I think my staff and I, or my team, as I like to say, we work very hard to develop relationships on both sides of the aisle and to communicate the value of our positions in a way that appeals with a variety of policy interests. And I just think that's so important. So whether it's a Republican controlled Congress or a Democrat controlled Congress, we have a story to tell and we think it will resonate with everyone. And I really feel like that's how you get things done in Washington. You have to kind of work across party lines and find common ground.
That's right. And nothing is greater than food security, especially since both sides eat. So It should be an easy one to try to get together on, right?
Yeah, we hope so.
Yes. Not always easier said than done, right? And I listen, obviously I ask a lot of questions and I hear a lot of, I listen to both sides as well, just in my day-to-day life in doing this. And listening to all sides of the conversation, I'm hearing on one side that not enough is being done for conservation and climate. And on the other side, I'm hearing that too much is being regulated in those areas. And producers are feeling that the overregulation is going to make their lives more difficult and harder to produce food, essentially. So what's your opinion on this balance?
Yeah, I think you're really picking up on kind of a key question as we head into the next Farm Bill. What is the focus of the committee? And I guess it will depend on, what is the focus of the committee leadership? Is climate and conservation top of their priority list, or will it be more the producer risk management side? Some could argue that it's possible to tackle both in a bipartisan manner. But we're seeing some early lines drawn in the sand around climate. But I think it's still far too early to tell what the implications will be if the budget reconciliation bill that's kind of being discussed in Congress right now is passed and signed into law, kind of potentially unlocking some additional funds for conservation programs and climate smart practices. Again, it's to be determined if that finds its way through Congress, or they're going to be hopefully debating it in the Senate here in a couple of days. But to your point, while overregulation is an important hurdle for ag producers, kind of addressing the issues through a farm bill has been historically difficult. So most of agriculture's issues those issues are with the EPA, which primarily falls in jurisdiction kind of outside the ag committee. So some of these more regulatory pieces we've tried to address through farm bills, but because of the jurisdictional issues can be challenging.
Yeah, that makes sense. And what are the National Corn Growers Association's top priorities for this bill?
Yeah, so we have quite a process that we work through, and I know all commodity groups do. We really rely on input from grower members, our grower members, state associations, and the grower-led action teams that we operate in kind of developing our federal policy positions. So corn growers have identified the top principles as Congress begins to develop. And these are kind of broader strokes, if you will, and we're kind of working on doing our homework to kind of fill in the specifics. But number one, as I mentioned, will continue to be to protect crop insurance. It is the most vital risk management tool for our growers. We also want to continue to bolster the U.S. international market development efforts. We've got a couple programs within the Farm Bill that are very important to that international trade piece for corn. And really, that's just about moving more corn, right? More markets is a good thing, and moving more corn. So we want to make sure we kind of focus there. Also, just strengthening that producer safety net. So not only through crop insurance, but through the Title I farm programs is going to be important. And then, we want to just kind of continue to support those voluntary conservation practices, which, we really have found over the years that have been really vital and important to our growers' kind of business plans, if you will, but keeping those voluntary, keeping those incentive-based, I think will be an important part of kind of this next Farm Bill debate. And that's kind of a broad strokes of where we are for priorities.
Yeah, great points too. And with all of the issues today, increasing food and input prices, the market volatility, the civil unrest around the globe, they're all impacting the production and distribution of food. So, it's hard to know which way to turn, but what opportunities exist in ag that the government should be focused on going forward in 2023?
Well, we know fuel prices are extremely high. We know that's impacting farmers, input costs, and all consumers.
Mm-hmm.
Corn growers produce a product that saves consumers money at the pump while realizing significant environmental benefits. So we've seen across the board that ethanol is $1 per gallon less than unblended gasoline at wholesale. And drivers are saving 30 to 40 cents or more per gallon, where retailers offer fuel with a 15% ethanol blend, or E15 as we call it. So there are obstacles in the way of offering year-round access to higher levels of ethanol. Long-term, NCGA is advocating for consumer access to higher blends to expand their choice and, again, lower the cost, and also cutting back on greenhouse gas emissions, which is important. So we've been, kind of kicking around a lot of different ideas, and we've had some legislation introduced in Congress called the Next Generation Fuels Act, which is a bill that is pending in the House and the Senate, which would really achieve these goals through advanced fuels and vehicles, and allow the sale of higher blends of ethanol, which we really think would be, to your point of the market volatility, would really help in that regard. So ethanol is always kind of a top priority at the National Corn Growers Association, and something that's always top of mind.
Yeah, good points. And how can people get involved? You said to, make sure your voice is heard with your local government and your state representatives. What else can people do?
So we do a regular alerts on issues that are important to farmers. So if you're a member of your local corn grower association or not, but if you are, and you definitely can get these alerts, which we will call upon you to kind of contact your member of Congress and press on an issue at hand that's maybe what I like to call a live issue, or something that's kind of currently being debated and considered in Congress. So we will be doing these calls to action as the Farm Bill is updated.
Great.
So you sign up for these updates. You can text. Actually, we have a couple of ways. You can do it on our website at ncga.com, or you can also text GROW, the word GROW, to 50457. And again, that will opt you into our text messaging service, and you'll get an alert whenever we do one of these calls to action. You can also kind of sign up for our newsletters. That's on our website as well. And that's how we update our broader membership. We also, it's getting involved at the local level. And of course, we'd love to have your involvement in local corn grower groups, but, there's a lot of good ag advocacy groups out there that can help provide information and just kind of keep you more informed about what's going on in Washington and how that will affect your business.
Great. And we'll put all of those links in the show notes as well. And that number, that's a great resource. Everybody has a phone and can text. So
yes,
can receive text. That's great.
We found it to be pretty effective. So
yeah, that's great. And then back to Women in Agribusiness Summit. Why are events and organizations like this so important?
Yeah, I think a summit like this definitely important because it brings people from different backgrounds in agriculture together to talk about common concerns and to share ideas with each other. And, that cross-pollination, in my opinion, is really invaluable. So again, I'm looking forward to that. We spend a lot of time in the commodity world working with other trade associations. And of course, we have a really good relationship with our ag industry partners. But for me, I think I'm just looking to expand that network and kind of see all the various people that are represented at this conference. And it looks like a great lineup. So I think just bringing everyone together at the same time, and you always learn a lot. You think you kind of know, but I'm always walk away from stuff like this just surprised just about how vast and how vast the ag industry is.
I agree. And I'm excited. I'll be there too. So hopefully we get to run into each other there. That would be great. Yeah. And I have one last question for you.
Sure.
Why do you serve the ag industry? What's your greatest passion?
Oh, yeah, that's a good question. I mentioned I grew up on a farm in an area, of course, where agriculture was such an important part of not only the economy, but kind of the way of life. So I do think it comes for me a little bit more naturally, although we've got a lot of great people who work in agriculture who don't necessarily have ag backgrounds. But I've definitely seen kind of firsthand how policy out of Washington can either burden or help family farms. And so I think just, having that ability to influence how policy is crafted. And I get to kind of pair the experience I had growing up with my, advocacy and policy skills and affect change for farmers. I mean, I think that's just kind of crazy. It's kind of two worlds colliding. I have great conversations with my dad on a regular basis about kind of what he's dealing with and the decisions he's making on his farm. And it's kind of good to have that, be able to kind of have that personal understanding. But yeah, I think that just makes me even more passionate about this job. And just understanding too, I think after living in Washington for almost 20 years, having that rural background and growing up, that's really an asset, in my opinion. Understanding that way of life and living and what it's like in these small rural communities, that's not something that everyone walks around having. So I found it to be very useful for me and just kind of having that understanding.
Yeah, that's great. And I agree there should be more people with farm background in Washington for sure. I think that might help too.
We'll take them.
That's great. Yep. So thank you so much, Brooke, for joining me today. It was a great conversation and looking forward to the summit too.
Yes, me too. Well, thanks so much for having me.
And thanks to all who are watching or listening. If you want to learn more, the links are provided in the show notes. You can register and learn more about the summit at www.womeninag.com. And don't forget to subscribe to our North American Ag Spotlight YouTube, Rumble, Telegram, or AgFuse channels. And the podcast is available on Spotify, Apple, Stitcher, Amazon, or wherever you listen to podcasts. And have a great day. Thanks so much for listening to today's Ag Spotlight episode, where we put the spotlight on people and companies doing great things for the agricultural industry. Don't forget to subscribe on Apple, Amazon, Spotify, Stitcher, or on your favorite podcasting platform, and give us a 5-star review. You can also follow us on YouTube and Rumble to see the video version of Ag Spotlight. Also, head on over to NorthAmericanAg.com to subscribe to our Industry Connect update newsletter. If you're interested in advertising opportunities, email us at connect@NorthAmericanAg.com. Thanks for listening. Our newest podcast by North American Ag is called What Color is Your Tractor? The stories behind the ag brands you love and the ag brands you love to hate. Hosted by me, Chrissy Wozniak. We take a deep dive into the companies that have built modern agriculture. Subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform. Go to whatcolorisyourtractor.com. Available on Apple, Amazon, Spotify, Stitcher, or wherever you listen to podcasts.